The blanket was red. Not crimson or burgundy or any of those words people use when they want to sound thoughtful. Just red, the kind of fleece you'd find in a clearance bin at a pharmacy. Someone had draped it over my wheelchair while I slept, tucked the edges around the armrest like I was a child who might catch cold. A candy cane card was taped to the metal frame. "Merry Christmas," it said, the exclamation point doing all the heavy lifting. The fluorescent lights hummed their usual tune overhead, and somewhere down the hall a radio played carols on a loop. I touched the blanket. It was soft. That was something. The morning nurse came in with a breakfast tray, scrambled eggs that looked like they'd been cooked yesterday, toast, a cup of orange juice sweating through its plastic film. She smiled at me, the kind of smile that's part of the uniform, and set the tray on the table that swung over my lap. "Merry Christmas, honey," she said. Her scrubs had snowflakes on them. "Thanks," I said. "You too." She fussed with the blanket, smoothing a corner that didn't need smoothing. I asked her when I might be getting out of here, and her hands stilled for just a second before she picked up the empty water pitcher from my bedside table. "Soon," she said, not looking at me. "Real soon." She left before I could ask what soon meant in hospital time. Days? Weeks? The door clicked shut, and I was alone again with the eggs and the carols and the blanket that someone thought would make a difference. My duffel bag sat in the corner where Lena had left it 3 weeks ago. She'd packed it carefully, pajamas, socks, my phone charger, a book I hadn't opened. On top of the bag was a framed photo of my mother, the one from her 50th birthday, back when her hair was still dark and her smile didn't look like it cost her anything. I'd brought it just for the week. That was 6 weeks ago now. The accident had been quick. A car ran a red light. T-boned me at an intersection I'd driven through 1,000 times. The surgery had been slower, the recovery slower still. My phone sat on the bedside table, screen dark. 17 unread texts. I didn't need to open them to know what they said. Lena checking in. Lena asking if I needed anything. Lena saying she'd visit soon. I picked up the phone, set it back down. The eggs were getting cold. Physical therapy was at 10. The gym was empty when I got there, just me and Ryan, the therapist who looked about 23 and spent half the session scrolling his phone between sets. He positioned me at the parallel bars, his hand hovering near my elbow like I might collapse at any moment. Maybe I would. My left leg dragged when I tried to walk, the muscles not quite remembering what they were supposed to do. "Good," Ryan said, glancing up from his phone. "That's good. Keep going." I made it halfway down the bars before my leg buckled. I caught myself, tasted blood where I'd bitten the inside of my cheek. Ryan's hand shot out, steadied me, and I wanted to tell him I didn't need his help. But I did, so I didn't say anything. "Your insurance approved another few days," he said like it was good news. "So we'll keep working." "Another few days?" I nodded. He went back to his phone. When I got back to my room, there was an envelope on the bedside table. Plain manila, no name on the front. I wheeled closer, picked it up. Inside was a hospital release form, the kind with too many lines of fine print and a signature box at the bottom. The date at the top said 2 days ago, December 23rd. The signature line was filled in. My name, in handwriting that wasn't mine. I stared at it. The capital M looped the wrong direction. My real signature slanted left, a habit from years of writing too fast. This one was upright, confident, the letters evenly spaced like someone had taken their time. I turned the paper over. Nothing, just the form, just the signature that wasn't mine. The evening nurse came in to check my vitals. Her name was Pauline, older, kind, the type who actually listened when you talked. I showed her the form, pointed to the signature. "I didn't sign this," I said. She frowned, took the paper from my hands, held it up to the light like that might reveal something. "Let me check with administration," she said. She patted my shoulder, left the form on the table. I heard her in the hallway whispering to someone I couldn't see. The words were too low to make out, but the tone was clear. Concern, maybe confusion, maybe something else. I sat there with the form in my lap, the red blanket still draped over the chair, and tried to remember if I'd signed anything in the last few days. The pain meds made everything hazy, conversations I half remembered, faces that blurred together, but I would have remembered this, wouldn't I? Night came, and I couldn't sleep. I lay in the dark and replayed the accident frame by frame, the way I'd done 100 times before. The intersection, the green light. The other car coming out of nowhere, too fast. The sound of metal on metal, the way the world tilted and then went black. I remembered waking up in the ER, the surgery, the days that followed in a fog of pain and medication. I remembered signing intake forms, my hand shaking so badly Lena had to hold the clipboard steady, but I didn't remember signing a release form. I didn't remember anyone asking me to. Morning came with another tray, another nurse. This one was younger, efficient, didn't make small talk. She took my blood pressure, made a note on her tablet, and left. An hour later, a woman knocked on the door. She introduced herself as Diane, a social worker. She had a clipboard and a smile that looked rehearsed. "How are you feeling about going home?" she asked, sitting in the chair beside my bed. "I haven't been cleared yet," I said. Her smile tightened just a little. "According to our records, you signed yourself out." She glanced at her clipboard. 2 days ago, I picked up the form from the bedside table, held it out to her. "This isn't my signature." Diane took the paper, studied it for a moment. Her expression didn't change. "Handwriting analysis isn't really my department," she said, "but it's possible you signed it while you were on medication and don't remember. That happens sometimes." I didn't sign it. She handed the form back to me, her tone shifting from warm to procedural. "I'll make a note in your file, but the discharge process has already started, so we'll need to coordinate your transition home." "I don't have a home to go to," I said. "My apartment's a third-floor walk-up, no elevator." "Do you have family nearby?" "My sister." "Then we'll work with her to arrange something." Diane stood, smoothed her skirt. "Someone will be in touch." She left, and I sat there with the form in my hands, the signature that wasn't mine staring back at me. I picked up the room phone, dialed Lena's number. She answered on the third ring, her voice strained. "Mira, I've been trying to reach you." "I know," I said. "Did you get some kind of paperwork from the hospital?" There was a long pause. Too long. "Lena, I thought you knew," she said quietly. "Knew what?" Another pause. I heard her take a breath, let it out slowly. "They called me. Said your bed was needed for incoming trauma cases. They asked me to help facilitate your discharge." The room went very still. "You signed the form." "I thought I was helping," she said, and her voice cracked. "They said it was urgent and you weren't answering your phone, and I thought you were ready." "You didn't ask me." "I know, I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do." I hung up. Set the phone back in its cradle. The carols were still playing in the hallway, something about joy and peace and goodwill. I wheeled to the window, looked out at the parking lot below. Snow was falling, light and slow, covering the cars in a thin layer of white. My reflection stared back at me from the glass, pale, tired, a stranger in a hospital gown. I thought about my apartment, the stairs I couldn't climb. I thought about Lena's place, the guest room she'd offered before, the one with the narrow doorway and the step up from the hallway. I thought about the red blanket, the candy cane card, the smile that came with breakfast. Merry Christmas to me. Morning came with a tray I didn't touch. The eggs sat there congealing, the toast going cold, the orange juice sweating through its film. Pauline came in to check on me, saw the untouched food, and sat down on the edge of the bed without asking. "What's wrong, honey?" "I'm being discharged," I said. "Apparently." Her eyebrows went up. "I didn't know that." "Neither did I." She looked at the tray, then at me, and something in her expression shifted. Concern, maybe, or recognition. She'd been a nurse long enough to know how these things worked, the machinery that moved, patients in and out whether they were ready or not. "Have you talked to your doctor?" "He's off until the 27th. She nodded slowly, stood up, took the tray. "I'll see what I can find out." But we both knew what she'd find. The decision had already been made. The bed was already promised to someone else. I was already gone, at least on paper. I wheeled myself to the nurse's station after Pauline left. The receptionist, a woman named Carol with reading glasses on a chain, looked up from her computer. "I need to speak to someone in charge," I said. "About what?" "About my discharge. I didn't authorize it." Carol's fingers paused over her keyboard. "Your doctor's not in until—" "I know. I need to speak to anyone who can explain why I'm being discharged without my consent." She picked up the phone, made a call, spoke in low tones I couldn't quite hear. When she hung up, she gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Someone will come by later." Later. That word again, the one that meant nothing and everything. I wheeled back to my room, past the other patients' doors, some open, some closed, all of them containing people who were probably just as stuck as I was. Physical therapy was at 10, same as always. Ryan was waiting in the gym, phone in hand, that same distracted look on his face. He positioned me at the parallel bars, and I gripped the rails hard enough to feel the metal bite into my palms. "Let's try walking the full length today," he said. I started moving. Left foot, drag the right, left foot, drag the right. My leg felt like dead weight, the muscles firing wrong, the signals from my brain getting lost somewhere along the way. Halfway down the bars, my knee buckled. I caught myself, tasted blood again from biting my cheek. Ryan's hand was there, hovering, and I wanted to slap it away. "You're making progress," he said. "Am I ready to go home?" He hesitated. "That's not really my call." "Whose call is it?" He didn't answer. Just reset me at the start of the bars, told me to try again. I made it 3/4 of the way before my leg gave out completely. This time I didn't catch myself. Ryan grabbed my arm, held me upright, and I hated him for it. Not because he was helping, but because I needed the help. Back in my room, I opened my phone for the first time in days. 17 unread texts had become 23. Most were from Lena, apologies, explanations, offers to help. I scrolled past them, opened my email instead. There were 3 from the hospital billing department. I'd ignored them before, assuming they were just invoices, reminders about copays. But one of them, dated 3 days ago, had a subject line that made my stomach drop. Discharge coordination. I opened it. Inside were instructions for arranging transport, a list of home care agencies, a phone number to call for follow-up appointments. At the bottom, in bold, "Please confirm a receipt of this email and your discharge date of December 23rd. I'd never opened it, never confirmed anything. But someone had moved forward anyway. I sat there staring at the screen, the pieces clicking into place. The hospital had decided I was leaving. They'd contacted Lena. Lena had signed the form, and I'd been asleep through all of it, wrapped in a red blanket, listening to carols, thinking I still had time. The door opened. Lena stood there with a paper bag from the Chinese place near her house, the one we used to go to with Mom. She looked exhausted, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, dark circles under her eyes, her coat still dusted with snow. "I brought lunch," she said. I didn't say anything. She came in anyway, set the bag on the table, started unpacking containers. Fried rice, lo mein, spring rolls. The smell filled the room, and my stomach twisted with hunger I didn't want to feel. "I've been looking into accessible apartments," Lena said, not looking at me. "There are a few options, nothing great, but how long can I stay with you?" She stopped unpacking. "What?" "You said I could stay with you for a while. How long is a while?" Her hands hovered over the containers. "As long as you need." That's not an answer. She finally looked at me and I saw it in her face, the exhaustion, the guilt, the fear that I was going to ask for more than she could give. "I don't know, Mira. A few weeks, a month? I'm trying to figure it out." "You should have figured it out before you signed the form." "I know." Her voice cracked. "I know, okay? I screwed up. But they were pressuring me and I didn't know what else to do." "You could have asked me." "You weren't answering your phone." "So you made the decision for me." She sat down in the chair, put her face in her hands. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. The food sat between us, getting cold. "Do you remember Mom?" I said finally. "After Dad left?" Lena looked up. "What?" "She never asked for help, never admitted she was drowning, just kept going until she couldn't anymore." "This isn't the same." "Isn't it?" Lena's face hardened. "I'm not Mom, and you're not her either. I'm trying to help you, Mira. I'm sorry it's not perfect, but I'm doing the best I can. Your best got my signature forged." She stood up, grabbed her coat. "I can't do this right now." "Lena..." But she was already gone, the door swinging shut behind her. I sat there with the food, the smell of it making me nauseous now. I picked up a spring roll, set it back down, wheeled to the window and watched the parking lot, looking for Lena's car. I found it, a blue SUV with a car seat in the back, and watched her get in, sit there for a moment with her hands on the wheel. She didn't start the engine right away, just sat there, and I wondered if she was crying. I felt the anger in my chest, hot and tight, and underneath it something worse. Guilt, because I knew Lena was trying. I knew she had her own life, her own problems, 2 kids, and a husband and a job that barely paid enough. I knew she'd been fielding calls from the hospital, from the insurance company, from me, trying to hold everything together. And I knew that signing the form had probably felt like the only option, the only way to make the pressure stop. But it didn't change the fact that my signature was forged, that someone had decided my life for me while I slept under a red blanket, listening to carols. Lena's car finally pulled out of the parking lot. I watched until it disappeared, then wheeled back to the bed. The food was still there. I ate a few bites of rice, forced down a spring roll, then pushed the containers away. Evening came. Pauline returned with a cup of tea I hadn't asked for. She set it on the bedside table, sat down in the chair Lena had vacated. "I looked into your discharge," she said, "and it's not uncommon for family members to sign on behalf of patients when beds are needed, especially if the patient is," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "not in a position to make decisions themselves." I was in a position. No one asked me. "I know." She wrapped her hands around the tea mug, even though it was mine. "My father was discharged early from a different hospital a few years ago. Fell at home 2 days later, broke his hip. Ended up back in the hospital for another month." She wasn't saying it to scare me, just to say she understood, that she'd seen how this worked, how people got shuffled out to make room for the next emergency, how the system kept moving whether you were ready or not. "What are my options?" I asked. "You can file a complaint, request a review, but it'll take time and the bed is already promised to someone else. They're expecting a car accident victim tomorrow morning." "So, I'm out of moves." She handed me the tea. "I didn't say that. I said it'll take time." But time was the one thing I didn't have. The discharge was already in motion. Lena was already looking for apartments. The hospital was already done with me. Pauline left, and I sat there with the tea, watching the steam rise and dissipate. I thought about my mother, about the way she'd handled everything after Dad left, the bills, the job, the 2 daughters who needed more than she could give. She'd never complained, never asked for help, just kept going until the cancer came and she couldn't go anymore. I'd been 19 when she died. Lena had been 22. We'd promised each other we'd be different, that we'd ask for help when we needed it, that we wouldn't drown in silence. But here we were anyway. Me in a hospital bed, Lena in her car crying in a parking lot, both of us drowning in different ways. I picked up my phone, scrolled through the emails again, found the one from the billing department, the one about discharge coordination. At the bottom was a name, Patricia Voss, Patient Services Coordinator. I opened a new email, started typing. "Ms. Voss, I received your email regarding my discharge on December 23rd. I did not authorize this discharge, nor did I sign the release form. The signature on the form is not mine. I am requesting a formal review of my case and an explanation of how this was allowed to proceed without my knowledge or consent. Mira Chen." I read it over 3 times, my finger hovering over the send button. It felt small, inadequate, like shouting into a void. But it was something. A line in the sand. Proof that I hadn't agreed to this. I hit send. The email disappeared into the ether, and I sat there feeling something shift inside me. Not relief exactly, not victory. Just a small reclamation of space, a reminder that I still had a voice even if no one was listening. I finished the tea. It was cold by then, bitter, but I drank it anyway. The next few days blurred together. Lena came back, apologized again, brought more food. We didn't talk about the fight. She showed me listings for accessible apartments, ground floor units, wide doorways, walk-in showers. Most of them were too expensive or too far from her house, or in neighborhoods I didn't know. One of them looked promising, a studio in a building near the bus line, affordable if I stretched my savings, available January 1st. "Do you want to see it?" Lena asked. "Yeah," I said. "I do." She scheduled a viewing for the 28th. In the meantime, I was supposed to go home with her, to her house, to the guest room she'd promised to clear out. The discharge was set for the 27th, the day after tomorrow, ready or not. I spent the time doing physical therapy exercises in my room. Ryan had given me a sheet of instructions, leg lifts, ankle rotations, stretches I was supposed to do 3 times a day. I did them 5 times, 6 times, pushing until my muscles screamed. My legs still dragged when I walked, but I could make it from the bed to the bathroom without holding on to anything. Small victories. Pauline checked on me every evening, brought tea, asked how I was doing. I told her about the apartment, about the viewing. She smiled, said it sounded like a good step. I didn't tell her about the email I'd sent, about the silence that had followed. Some things you kept to yourself. On the 26th, I got a response. Not from Patricia Voss, but from someone in HR, a generic email that said they were looking into the matter and would be in touch soon. At the bottom was a phone number for patient advocacy, an offer for a consultation. I called, left a message, didn't expect to hear back. That night, I packed my duffel bag, folded the red blanket, set it on top, left the candy cane card on the bedside table. Pauline came in while I was packing, watched me for a moment. "You're going to be okay," she said. "Am I?" "Yeah." She adjusted the blanket in my bag, tucking it in like she tucked it around my wheelchair that first morning. "You're tougher than you think." I wanted to believe her, wanted to feel tough, resilient, all those words people use when they mean you've survived something you shouldn't have had to survive in the first place. But mostly I just felt tired. Lena picked me up the next morning. She'd borrowed a wheelchair ramp from a friend, set it up in the back of her SUV. We loaded the duffel bag in silence, the red blanket visible through the open zipper. The drive to her house was 20 minutes of radio static and small talk that didn't land. She asked if I was hungry. I said no. She asked if I needed to stop anywhere. I said no. We drove. Her house was chaos when we arrived. Her two kids, 8 and 11, were fighting over a video game in the living room, their voices shrill and overlapping. The dog, a golden retriever named Biscuit, barked at the door, tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. Lena's husband, Mark, was on a work call in the kitchen, laptop open, headphones on. No one noticed me at first. Lena helped me out of the car, handed me my cane. I made it up the front steps slowly, gripping the railing, my leg dragging behind me. Inside, the noise was overwhelming. The kids, the dog, the television, Mark's voice saying something about quarterly reports. I stood in the entryway, feeling like an intruder. "Kids, say hi to Aunt Mira," Lena said. They glanced over, waved, went back to their game. Biscuit sniffed my leg, lost interest, wandered off. Mark gave me a thumbs up from the kitchen, still on his call. Lena picked up my duffel bag, led me down the hallway to the guest room. It was small. Smaller than I remembered. Boxes were stacked against one wall. Christmas decorations, old toys, things Lena hadn't gotten around to sorting. The bed was a twin pushed against the window. A lamp sat on a nightstand, the bulb dim and flickering. "I'll clear out the boxes," Lena said. "I just haven't had time yet." "It's fine." "It's not, but—" She set the duffel bag on the bed. "We'll make it work." She left, and I sat down on the edge of the bed. The mattress was too soft, sagging in the middle. Through the walls, I could hear the kids arguing, the dog barking, Mark's voice rising and falling. I opened my duffel bag, took out the red blanket, draped it over my lap. It still smelled like the hospital, antiseptic and laundry detergent, and something else I couldn't name. I opened my phone, scrolled through the apartment listings again, found the studio near the bus line, the one with the viewing tomorrow. Ground floor, wide doorways, walk-in shower. Affordable, barely. Available January 1st. I stared at the photos, the empty rooms, the blank walls, the space that could be mine if I wanted it, if I could afford it, if I could make it work. My finger hovered over the email icon. I opened a new message, addressed it to the landlord. "Hi, I'm still interested in viewing the unit tomorrow. Is 2 p.m. still available?" I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The reply came 10 minutes later. "Yes, 2 p.m. works. See you." Then I set the phone down, lay back on the bed, stared at the ceiling. Through the walls, the noise of Lena's life continued. The kids, the dog, the husband, the chaos of a family that wasn't mine. I closed my eyes, pulled the red blanket up to my chin, and tried to imagine what tomorrow would look like. A studio apartment, empty rooms, space that was mine. It felt impossible and necessary in equal measure. The morning of the viewing, I woke to the sound of Lena's kids fighting over the bathroom. Their voices carried through the thin walls, high-pitched accusations about toothpaste and whose turn it was. The dog barked. Someone dropped something in the kitchen, and Mark's voice rose above the chaos, asking where his keys were. I lay there with the red blanket pulled up to my chin, staring at the water stain on the ceiling, and tried to remember what silence sounded like. Lena knocked on the door around 9, poked her head in. "You want breakfast?" "I'm okay." "You sure? I made pancakes." "I'm sure." She lingered in the doorway, and I could see her trying to decide whether to push. She didn't. Just nodded and closed the door softly. I heard her footsteps retreat down the hallway, heard her telling the kids to hurry up or they'd be late for their friend's house. I got up slowly, testing my leg. It ached, a deep, bone-tired ache that physical therapy hadn't touched. I made it to the bathroom, gripping the doorframe, the wall. Anything solid. The face in the mirror looked like someone I used to know. Pale, hollow-eyed, hair that needed washing. I splashed water on my face, brushed my teeth, avoided looking at myself too long. By the time I made it to the kitchen, the house was quieter. The kids were gone. Mark was in the garage. Lena was loading the dishwasher, her movements quick and efficient like she was trying to outrun something. "The viewing's at 2, right?" she said without turning around. "Yeah. I'll drive you." "Thanks." She closed the dishwasher, wiped her hands on a towel, finally looked at me. "You didn't eat." "I'm not hungry." "Mira, I'm fine, Lena." But I wasn't, and we both knew it. She poured me a cup of coffee anyway, set it on the table, sat down across from me. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The coffee was too hot, too bitter, but I drank it anyway. "I talked to Mark," Lena said finally, "about you staying here longer if you need to." "What did he say?" She hesitated. "He said it's fine. That we'll figure it out." "That's not what he said." Her jaw tightened. "He's worried about money. We're already stretched thin, and with the holidays." She stopped, shook her head. "But he said it's fine. We'll make it work." I set the coffee down. "I'm not staying here, Lena." "You don't have to decide right now." "I already decided." She looked at me and I saw the relief in her eyes, even as she tried to hide it. She wanted to help. She did. But she also wanted her house back. Her life. Back, the version of normal that didn't include her sister sleeping in the guest room, surrounded by boxes of Christmas decorations. "The apartment might not work out," she said. "Then I'll find another one." "And if you can't afford it, I'll figure it out." She opened her mouth, closed it, nodded. We finished our coffee in silence. The apartment building was a low-rise brick structure on a street I didn't know, tucked between a laundromat and a corner store with bars on the windows. Lena pulled into the parking lot, and we sat there for a moment, both of us staring at the building. "It's not so bad," Lena said, but her voice was uncertain. "It's fine." The landlord was waiting in the lobby, a man in his 50s with a ring of keys clipped to his belt and a clipboard under his arm. He introduced himself as George, shook my hand, didn't comment on the cane. "Small mercies." "Ground floor, like you asked," he said, leading us down a hallway that smelled like old carpet and cleaning solution. "Just got the unit ready last week. Previous tenant moved out in November." He unlocked the door, pushed it open. The apartment was small, a studio with a kitchenette along one wall, a bathroom to the right, a single window overlooking the parking lot. The walls were beige, the floor was laminate, scuffed in places but clean. The window let in weak winter light that made everything look washed out. "Walk-in shower," George said, gesturing to the bathroom. "Grab bars already installed. Doorways are all 36 inches, ADA compliant." I stepped inside, testing the space. From the door to the window was maybe 15 steps. The kitchenette had a 2-burner stove, a mini fridge, a sink with a dripping faucet. The bathroom was narrow but functional, shower, toilet, sink, a mirror with a crack in the corner. Lena stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "It's small." "It's enough," I said. I walked the length of the studio, my cane tapping against the laminate. My leg dragged, but I made it to the window without stopping. Outside, a woman was loading groceries into her car. A kid rode by on a bike, too fast, no helmet. Normal life, the kind I'd forgotten existed. "Rent's $8.50 a month," George said. "First and last, plus security deposit. Utilities not included. Lease is month to month if you want, or I can do a year." I did the math in my head. My savings would cover the move-in costs, barely. After that, I'd need to figure out income. Disability payments maybe, or some kind of remote work if I could find it. It was tight. Too tight. But it was possible. "Can I think about it?" I asked. "Sure, but I've got 2 other people looking at it this week, so don't wait too long." He handed me his card, told me to call if I had questions, left us alone in the empty studio. Lena walked to the window, looked out at the parking lot. "You can't afford this," she said quietly. "I'll make it work." "How?" "I don't know yet." She turned to face me. "Mira, I'm not trying to push you out. You can stay with us as long as you need." "I know." "Then why?" Because it's not my space, Lena. It's yours. And I need something that's mine. Her face crumpled just for a second before she pulled it back together. I'm sorry. For all of this. For signing the form, for not asking you first, for... I know, I said. I know you're sorry. We stood there in the empty studio, the silence between us heavy with things we couldn't say. Finally, Lena picked up her purse, headed for the door. Let's go home, she said. But it wasn't home. Not for me. Not anymore. That night I lay in the guest room and listened to Lena's house settle around me. The kids were asleep. Mark was watching something in the living room, the television volume low. Lena was in the kitchen, cleaning up from dinner, the sound of dishes clinking together. I picked up my phone, opened my email. There was a message from Patient Advocacy, a woman named Sandra, offering a phone consultation for the following week. I replied, confirmed the appointment, set the phone down. It felt like a formality, like going through motions that wouldn't change anything. But I did it anyway. I opened a new message, addressed it to George. Hi, George, I'd like to move forward with the apartment. When can I sign the lease? I stared at the words for a long time. My savings account balance was pulled up in another tab. Enough for the deposits, enough for maybe 2 months of rent if I was careful. After that, I'd be running on fumes. It was reckless, stupid maybe, but staying here felt like drowning in slow motion and I needed air. I hit send. The reply came 20 minutes later. Great. Can you come by tomorrow to sign and pay the deposits? I'll have the lease ready. Tomorrow. I typed back, yes. What time? 10 a.m. work? Yes. I set the phone down, pulled the red blanket up to my chin and tried to sleep. It didn't come easy. Lena drove me to the apartment building the next morning. She didn't ask questions, just handed me a cup of coffee and got in the car. The drive was quiet, the radio off, both of us lost in our own thoughts. When we pulled into the parking lot, she finally spoke. Are you sure about this? No, I said, but I'm doing it anyway. George was waiting in the lobby with the lease, 6 pages of fine print and signature lines. He walked me through it, pointing out clauses about noise, pets, subletting. I barely listened, just nodded, signed where he told me to sign. My real signature, slanting left, unmistakably mine. He made a copy, handed me the keys. 2 of them, brass, worn smooth from previous tenants. I held them in my palm, felt their weight. You can move in any time, George said. Unit's ready. Lena helped me write the checks. First month, last month, security deposit. I watched my savings account balance drop, felt my stomach drop with it. But the keys were in my hand, and the lease had my signature, and for the first time in weeks, something felt like mine. We went back to Lena's house to pack. It didn't take long. I'd been living out of a duffel bag for 6 weeks. Clothes, toiletries, the framed photo of my mother, the red blanket. Lena brought boxes from the garage, helped me pack the few things I'd left at her place before the accident. Books, a lamp, some kitchen stuff I'd forgotten I owned. The kids came home while we were packing, asked where I was going. Lena told them I was getting my own place. They seemed relieved, and I didn't blame them. I'd been a ghost in their house, a presence that disrupted routines and took up space. Mark helped load the boxes into the SUV. He didn't say much, just carried things efficiently, his face neutral. When everything was loaded, he shook my hand. Good luck, he said. Thanks. Lena drove me to the apartment. We made 2 trips, carrying boxes and bags up the short walkway, through the lobby, down the hallway to my door. The studio looked even smaller with my things in it, but it was mine. I set the framed photo of my mother on the windowsill, draped the red blanket over the back of the folding chair Lena had brought from her garage. I can stay and help you unpack, Lena said. I'm okay. Mira, really, I'm okay. She looked around the studio, at the beige walls and the scuffed floor, and the window overlooking the parking lot. I could see her trying to find something positive to say, something that would make this feel less like a mistake. It has good light, she said finally. I almost laughed. Yeah, it does. She hugged me then, quick and tight, and I felt her shoulders shake. When she pulled back, her eyes were wet. Call me if you need anything, she said. I will. But we both knew I wouldn't. Not right away. Not until I'd figured out how to stand on my own, how to exist in this space without feeling like I was drowning. She left, and I was alone. The silence was overwhelming at first. No kids fighting, no dog barking, No television in the background. Just me and the hum of the mini fridge and the drip of the kitchen faucet. I sat down on the folding chair, the red blanket soft against my back, and looked around. The studio was empty. Bare. But it was mine. I spent the rest of the day unpacking slowly, putting things away in drawers and cabinets, trying to make the space feel lived in. I hung a towel in the bathroom, put dishes in the kitchenette, made the bed with sheets Lena had given me. By evening, the studio looked less like a blank slate and more like a place someone might actually live. I made tea. The electric kettle was one of the things I'd salvaged from my old apartment, and sat by the window. Outside, the parking lot was quiet. A few cars came and went. The woman I'd seen before was walking her dog, a small terrier that pulled at the leash. Normal life, unfolding in small, unremarkable moments. My phone buzzed. A text from Lena. "You okay?" I typed back. "Yeah. Thanks for everything." Her reply came immediately. "Love you. Love you, too." I set the phone down, sipped my tea. It was cheap tea, the kind that came in bags from the grocery store, but it was hot and it was mine, and that was enough. The next few days passed in a strange, suspended quiet. I did physical therapy exercises in the studio, leg lifts, ankle rotations, walking from the door to the window and back. My legs still dragged, but I could make it farther each day. 10 steps, then 12, then 15. Small victories that no one was watching. I called Sandra from Patient Advocacy. She was kind, professional, asked me to explain what had happened. I told her about the forged signature, about Lena, about waking up to a discharge I hadn't authorized. She took notes, said she'd look into it, that these things took time. "What's the best outcome here?" I asked. "Honestly, an apology, maybe a policy review, but it's unlikely you'll see any real consequences." So nothing changes. I didn't say that. Sometimes just having it on record matters. For the next person. The next person. I thanked her, hung up, sat with the weight of it. The hospital would apologize, maybe. They'd review their policies, maybe. But I'd still been discharged without my consent, still had my signature forged, still ended up here in a studio apartment I could barely afford, trying to piece together a life that had been decided for me. But I was here, and the lease had my real signature, and that had to count for something. I started looking for work, remote jobs, freelance gigs, anything I could do from the studio. Data entry, transcription, customer service. The pay was terrible, but it was something. I applied to a dozen positions, heard back from 2. One was a scam. The other was a transcription company that paid per audio minute. I took it. The work was tedious, listening to recordings, typing out every word, formatting transcripts, but it was mine. I could do it from the folding chair by the window, the red blanket draped over my lap, tea cooling on the sill beside my mother's photo. I could do it at my own pace, on my own terms. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Lena visited on New Year's Eve, brought takeout and a bottle of cheap champagne. We ate on the floor, the boxes serving as a makeshift table, and talked about small things, the kids, Mark's job, a show she was watching. She didn't ask about money or how I was managing. I didn't offer. At midnight, we opened the champagne, poured it into mismatched mugs because I didn't have glasses yet. Lena raised hers. "To new beginnings," she said. I clinked my mug against hers. "To new beginnings." We drank, and the champagne was terrible, too sweet, too fizzy, but it felt right. Lena left an hour later, hugged me at the door, told me she was proud of me. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just hugged her back. Alone again, I sat by the window and watched fireworks bloom in the distance, small bursts of color against the black sky. The new year stretched out ahead of me, uncertain and terrifying in mine. I picked up my phone, opened my email. There was a message from the hospital, a formal apology from someone in administration, acknowledgement that protocol wasn't followed, assurance that they were reviewing policies to prevent future incidents. No admission of wrongdoing, no consequences mentioned. I read it twice, then filed it away. The apology wasn't the resolution. The studio was, the keys were. The mornings I woke up and decided what happened next. I walked to the bathroom, gripping the wall, my leg dragging behind me. 15 steps. I made it without stopping. In the mirror, my face looked less like a stranger's, still pale, still tired, but present. Here, I walked back to the window, the red blanket around my shoulders, and looked out at the parking lot. The fireworks had stopped. The street was quiet. Somewhere in the building, someone was playing music, the bass thumping through the walls. Normal life, messy and imperfect and real. I thought about the forged signature, the release form, the moment I'd realized someone else had decided my story. And I thought about the lease, my real signature slanting left across the page, unmistakably mine. It wasn't the ending I'd imagined, but it was mine. And for now, that was enough. January came in cold and gray, the kind of weather that made you want to stay in bed all day. I didn't have that luxury. The transcription work was steady but slow. $20 for an hour of audio that took me 3 hours to transcribe. I did the math every morning, watching my savings dwindle, and tried not to panic. Rent was due in 3 weeks, then 2 weeks, then 1. I applied for disability benefits, filled out forms that asked questions I didn't know how to answer. How limited was my mobility? How much pain was I in? How long until I could work a normal job again? I put down my best guesses, sent the forms off, and tried not to think about the 6 to 8 week processing time. Lena called every few days, asked how I was doing. I told her fine. She asked if I needed anything. I told her no. The conversations were short, careful, both of us dancing around the things we couldn't say. She wanted to help. I wanted to prove I didn't need help. We were both lying. The studio became my entire world. I learned its rhythms. The neighbor upstairs who walked heavily at 6 a.m., the couple next door who fought in Spanish every Thursday night, the way the radiator clanked when the heat kicked on. I learned which floorboards creaked, how many steps it took to get from the bed to the bathroom in the dark, the exact angle of afternoon light that made the water stain on the ceiling look like a bird in flight. I did my physical therapy exercises religiously, leg lifts until my muscles burned, ankle rotations until I lost count. Walking the length of the studio over and over, my cane tapping against the laminate like a metronome. Some days my leg felt stronger, some days it didn't. I kept going anyway. The red blanket stayed draped over the folding chair by the window. I'd sit there in the mornings with my tea, watching the parking lot wake up. The woman with the terrier. The man who left for work at 7:30 every day, coffee mug in hand. The teenager who smoked cigarettes by the dumpster when he thought no one was watching. Small lives unfolding in small moments, and I was part of it now. Not a patient, not a guest in someone else's house. Just a person, living. 3 weeks into January, I got an email from Sandra at Patient Advocacy. The hospital had completed their review. They acknowledged that communication could have been clearer, and that family consent procedures would be revisited. The forged signature was mentioned only obliquely, documentation irregularities that would be addressed through staff training. No consequences, no real accountability, just corporate language that meant nothing and everything. I read the email 3 times, waiting to feel something. Anger, maybe. Vindication. But mostly I just felt tired. The fight was over, and I'd won nothing except the confirmation that I'd been right. It didn't change what had happened. Didn't give me back the choice that had been taken from me. But I'd made new choices since then. The studio, the work, the slow, painful process of rebuilding a life that was mine. I closed the email, filed it away with the others, and went back to transcribing. Lena showed up unannounced on a Saturday afternoon, carrying 2 grocery bags and a determined expression. She let herself in. I'd given her a spare key, a decision I was now questioning, and started unpacking food onto the kitchenette counter. "You don't have to do this," I said from the folding chair. "I know." "Lena, let me help Mira, please." There was something in her voice that made me stop. Not pity, not guilt, just exhaustion, the same kind I felt every morning when I woke up and had to decide whether I had the energy to keep going. "Okay," I said. She made us lunch, grilled cheese and tomato soup, the kind Mom used to make when we were kids. We ate at the folding chair and the edge of the bed, the studio too small for a proper table. The food was good, simple. It tasted like home, or at least like the memory of home. "The kids ask about you," Lena said. "Yeah? They want to know when you're coming over." "I don't know. Soon, maybe." She nodded, stirred her soup. "Mark's been asking too, if you're okay, if you need anything." "I'm okay." "Are you?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the same exhaustion I felt mirrored back at me. She was trying so hard, had been trying since the accident, since the hospital, since the moment she'd signed that form thinking she was helping. "I'm getting there," I said. "I'm sorry." she said quietly. I know I keep saying it, but I am. I should have asked you first. I know. I set my soup down. I know you're sorry, and I know you were trying to help, but it doesn't change what happened. I know. And I need you to understand that I'm not angry at you anymore. I was, but I'm not now. I searched for the word. I'm just trying to figure out how to be okay with what happened, and I can't do that if you keep apologizing. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't know how else to fix it. You can't fix it. It's not fixable. But you can let me figure out how to live with it. She wiped her eyes, nodded. We finished our soup in silence, and it felt different this time. Not comfortable exactly, but honest, real. Before she left, she hugged me at the door. I love you, she said. I love you too. And I meant it. February brought a thaw, the snow melting into gray slush that made the parking lot a minefield. I ventured out more, short trips to the corner store, the laundromat, the bus stop 2 blocks away. My legs still dragged, but I was getting better at compensating, at finding my rhythm. People stared sometimes. I let them. The transcription work picked up. I was getting faster, more efficient, and the company started sending me longer files, interviews, podcasts, conference calls. The pay was still terrible, but it was enough to cover rent with a little left over. I applied for food assistance, swallowed my pride, and picked up my EBT card at the county office. The caseworker was kind, didn't make me feel small. Small mercies. I started physical therapy again, real physical therapy, at a clinic 3 bus stops away. The therapist was a woman named Keisha, younger than Ryan, but sharper, more focused. She pushed me harder than I'd been pushed in the hospital, made me work until my legs shook and my shirt was soaked with sweat. You're compensating with your hip, she said one day, watching me walk the parallel bars. I know. It's going to cause problems down the line. We need to retrain the muscle memory. So we did. Week after week, session after session, breaking down the movement into pieces so small they felt meaningless. Shift your weight, engage your core, don't lock your knee. It was tedious and frustrating and necessary. You're getting stronger, Keisha said after a month. Doesn't feel like it. That's because you're comparing yourself to before. Compare yourself to last week, last month. You're walking farther, standing longer. That's progress. Progress. I turned the word over in my mind, tried to believe it. One evening in late February, I walked to the corner store without my cane, just to see if I could. My leg dragged, my gait was uneven, but I made it there and back, 4 blocks total, without stopping. When I got back to the studio, I sat on the edge of the bed and cried. Not from pain, not from frustration, just from the weight of it, the slow, impossible work of becoming whole again. The red blanket was still draped over the folding chair. I pulled it around my shoulders, sat by the window, and watched the parking lot. The woman with the terrier was out there, letting her dog sniff every corner. The man with the coffee mug was coming home late, tie loosened, shoulders slumped. The teenager was smoking by the dumpster, scrolling his phone. Normal life. I was part of it now. March came, and with it a letter from the Social Security Administration. My disability claim had been approved. The monthly payment wasn't much, but combined with the transcription work, it was enough. More than enough. I could breathe. I called Lena, told her the news. She cried. I didn't. I'm proud of you, she said. For what? Getting disabled? For not giving up. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just said thank you. She invited me over for dinner the following weekend. I took the bus, made it up her front steps without help, and was greeted by the chaos I'd almost forgotten. The kids, the dog, Mark on a work call. But this time it felt different. Not overwhelming, just loud, human. We ate spaghetti at the kitchen table, the kids talking over each other, Biscuit begging for scraps. Lena asked about my physical therapy. I told her about Keisha, about walking without my cane. The kids asked if I could play video games with them. I said maybe later. After dinner, Lena and I sat on the back porch with mugs of tea. The air was cold but not bitter, the first hint of spring underneath. How's the studio? She asked. Small, but it's mine. You ever think about getting a bigger place? Maybe someday. For now, it's enough. She nodded, sipped her tea. I've been thinking about Mom a lot lately. Yeah? about how she never asked for help, how she just kept going until she couldn't. "We're not her," I said. "I know, but sometimes I wonder if we learned the wrong lesson, if we're so afraid of being like her that we don't know how to let people in." I thought about that, about the studio, about the months I'd spent trying to prove I didn't need anyone, about Lena trying to help in the only way she knew how, even when it was the wrong way. "Maybe," I said, "but we're learning." "Are we? We're here, aren't we, talking about it?" She smiled, and it was the first real smile I'd seen from her in months. "Yeah, we are." I stayed until the kids went to bed, then took the bus home. The studio was dark when I got back, the radiator clanking its greeting. I turned on the lamp, made tea, sat by the window with the red blanket around my shoulders. My phone buzzed. A text from Lena. "Thanks for coming over." "Love you," I typed back. "Love you, too." I thought about the hospital, about the forged signature, about waking up on Christmas morning to a blanket and a smile and a decision that had been made without me. I thought about how angry I'd been, how lost, how certain that I'd never feel whole again. I wasn't whole, not yet. Maybe not ever. But I was here, in a studio apartment with beige walls and a dripping faucet and a window that overlooked a parking lot. I was here, and the lease had my signature, and the choices were mine. I picked up the red blanket, held it to my face. It didn't smell like the hospital anymore. Just like laundry detergent and the faint scent of my tea. I folded it carefully, set it on the back of the chair, and looked at the framed photo of my mother on the windowsill. She was smiling in the photo, her 50th birthday, back when things were simpler. Or maybe they weren't simpler. Maybe she was just better at hiding the weight of it all. "I'm trying, Mom," I said to the photo. "I'm trying to do it different." The photo didn't answer, but I didn't need it to. I walked to the bathroom, 15 steps, no cane, my leg dragging but steady, and brushed my teeth. In the mirror, my face looked different. Still tired. Still marked by everything that had happened, but present, here. I walked back to the bed, pulled the covers up, and lay there in the dark. Through the walls, I could hear the couple next door talking softly, the words indistinct, but the tone gentle. Upstairs, someone was walking around, the footsteps heavy but rhythmic. The radiator clanked, the faucet dripped. The sounds of a life that was mine. I thought about the blanket, about the nurse who draped it over my wheelchair on Christmas morning. I'd never thanked her. Never even learned her name. But the blanket was still here, still soft, still a reminder that kindness existed even in places that felt unkind. I picked up my phone, opened a new note, and started typing. "Dear Pauline, I don't know if you'll remember me. I was in room 347 over Christmas. You brought me tea and sat with me when I needed someone to listen. You draped a red blanket over my wheelchair, and I want you to know it's still with me. It's in my apartment now, in the place I found, after I left the hospital. The place I chose. I don't know if you'll ever read this. I might not even send it. But I wanted to say thank you. For the blanket, for the tea. For treating me like a person when I felt like just another bed that needed to be emptied. Thank you. Mira." I read it over, my finger hovering over the delete button. Then I saved it instead. Maybe I'd send it someday. Maybe I wouldn't. But writing it felt like closing a door I'd been holding open for too long. I set the phone down, closed my eyes, and let sleep come. In the morning, I woke to weak sunlight filtering through the window. The parking lot was quiet. The woman with the terrier hadn't come out yet. The man with the coffee mug was probably still asleep. The teenager was probably still in bed, dreaming of somewhere else. I got up slowly, testing my leg. It ached, but it held. I walked to the window, 15 steps, no cane, and looked out at the world. The red blanket was draped over the folding chair, soft and familiar. The framed photo of my mother sat on the windowsill, her smile frozen in time. The keys to the apartment sat beside it, brass and worn in mine. I thought about the forged signature, about the release form, about the moment I'd realized someone else had written my name in handwriting that wasn't mine. I thought about the anger, the fear, the slow work of reclaiming something I hadn't known I'd lost. I wasn't healed. I wasn't fixed. But I was here, and the signature on the lease was mine, and that was enough.